Mahalo. I was thinking about this thing, and I think I've mentioned something about this type of thing before. Something to the effect that something about moral reformism. I think I've mentioned my disparity, or I think I've mentioned scientists in quite disparaging terms before, at least. I think I had said something to the effect that scientists sometimes take the notion of inquisitivity to the point of moral insanity. Something like that. I'm going to try to put this together in a manageable format. I tend to think that I would as soon trust a scientist's idea of morality as I would a actor's idea of politics. It just seems like that's not really necessarily what they're good with, and I think there's a reasoning behind that. I think it has to do with um, the fact that they quite often play jump rope with the laws of physics. They are people who literally think they can remake the universe, right? Who can, bend the laws of physics to their will or something, right? And if your first presupposition is everything is possible, it feels like there would be a certain type of logic to the notion that if everything is possible, how does one prioritize actions into categories of good, bad, right, wrong, moral, immoral, etc., right? If everything is possible, is the pervert who wants to have sex with donkeys, well, is he actually a pervert or is he the next step of human evolution? Everything's possible, right? Is the person who wants to euthanize all the cripples and, oh, you know, idiots, is he evil or is he the next step of human evolution? Is this type of, what is that dang thing called? Come on. It's not euthanasia. Eugenics. Is eugenics the future of mankind? Again, everything's possible. I think this is kind of why children get into some of the issues they do. They tend to be metamorphosizing on a grand scale, I guess. They tend to be changing very fast. And because they're changing very fast, that type of change has a tendency to cast a fog on their notion of what's possible and what's impossible. And consequently, their ideas of morality perhaps become dubious as well. Kids tend to think they're gods of sorts, especially in the teen years. I tend to think that especially as a period of extreme growth and extreme idiocy. But yeah, again, coming back to it, if your first presupposition is everything is possible, how do you prioritize behaviors? How do you say this behavior is good, that one's bad, this one's virtuous, that one's not? All right, I think that was all. All right, first one. Analyzing the Clancy case by Healthy Gamers GG. If you guys don't know about this, he'll probably recap it himself. There was some lady who killed her kids. That's the point.
We're going to be talking about this Lindsay Clancy trial. So in Massachusetts, there is a woman named Lindsay Clancy, and she was a mother of three. And there's currently, she is on trial for the murder of her children. And so part of her defense is that she was psychotic, and we'll explain what that means, and so therefore is not responsible for the death of her children. And why am I talking about it? Because
See, there's one thing that kind of sticks out to me. I think were it a case where she just killed one of her kids, one could argue that that was just some sort of in the moment rage type of thing. But the fact that I think she murdered three of her kids in sequence, that's something that would kind of go against her. It would seem to speak to more like premeditation or like a planning out. It wasn't just like, it's like those people who set up a camera and then have a melty on TikTok. It's like they're acting like it's spontaneous, just off the cuff. Like, no, it's not. There's a lot of forethought that went into that. You can't present it as some sort of just crime of crime of passion is the wrong wording for the TikTok thing, but for this thing, I feel like it would go against her that she couldn't just do it off as just like, oh, I was crazy for a second. No, you were crazy for a pretty long while, given that you killed 3 kids in line with her in sequence. So, yeah.
Because it's not just the trial. So we're going to start off by talking a little bit about the trial, going over some of the documents.
Well, beyond that, I think a part of her plea is a plea of insanity or something because of postpartum or whatever the crap. But if it's just postpartum, it feels like there are a lot of people who go through this type of thing and don't kill their kids. Admittedly, with regards to abortions, I don't know if postpartum happens after this. I don't know if that would. I don't know. In any case, it feels like again, there's a lot of mothers who don't do this. This is very uncommon. So it feels like the notion of saying, no, it's because I had this psychosis because of postpartum as a plea. I don't know if that really goes.
But what's really interesting is like the internet phenomenon this has become. And the internet phenomenon this has become is getting like really weird. Like, so I want to just show you guys stuff like this. So you're really breaking up with me over a fucking opinion. I'm not breaking up with you over an opinion. I'm breaking up with you because that opinion showed me a fundamental difference in our values. I can have compassion for someone struggling mentally without excusing what happened to those children. If I'm choosing someone to potentially be the mother of my kids, I need to trust their judgment completely, especially when it comes to protecting them. What you said created a doubt in me that I can't ignore or gamble my future children on. So like this has gotten to the point where like it's starting to impact.
See, I feel like the fact that a lot of this stuff is online makes me doubt the authenticity of it, but maybe some of it's real.
All kinds of things. And this is something that even has crossed my plate. So 2 days ago, my wife was like, hey, I don't think you're taking this Lindsay Clancy thing seriously enough. And I was like really surprised by that. So there's something going on here where this is not just the case. The rabid interest in the Lindsay Clancy case is uncovering so many things about what is going on with us as a society and what is wrong with us as a society. And so this is going to be like not a simple take. There's a really good chance that no matter what you believe, whether you believe she's guilty, whether you believe she's deserves compassion, whether you believe this guy is justified in breaking up with her, whether you believe that a woman is justified with breaking up with her male.
See, there's kind of a weird thing with regards to women. I expect women to be quite compassionate. So in a case where, like, someone kills someone, like, women famously fall in love with criminal types. So in this case, I'm not, like, astonished necessarily that women, like, in the case where another woman killed someone in postpartum, women wouldn't be compassionate towards her or more empathetic towards her situation. Maybe not want her to go to prison so much as go to some sort of, mental facility or something like that. But it does feel like I would also expect them to be very, very mother bearish towards the kids involved. And maybe that is by and large still the case, but it feels like there's a number of women who are displaying distinctly unmotherly tendencies. And frankly, I don't know if they maybe should have kids given how they're behaving, some of them. But you'd expect a lot of empathy towards the kids, and I would expect that almost to mitigate the effects of whatever empathy they might feel towards the woman themselves. I don't know. I think with regards to,
partner because they're not supportive enough of Lindsay Clancy. Like, whatever you believe, there's a decent chance I'm going to piss you off. So I'll give you guys just a simple example. So one of the things
I'm already pissed off
that's going on is that a lot of women on social media.
Oh, maybe that's part of it too. I think there are women who are thinking that either the husband induced some of these things in Lindsay, or that he was somehow responsible, or that maybe she's entirely innocent and the husband did it all. I think. And for the record, with regards to the criminal case, I believe Lindsay Clancy is actually, they're not pleading innocence. They're pleading insanity. They're saying, yes, she did it, but she was crazy when she did it. So maybe that's
believe that Lindsay Clancy is basically being framed by her husband. And her husband is really the guilty party. She's taking the fall for it. He divorced her a few months after this happened. And so there's like this.
After she killed their kids? That's, I don't agree with the notion of divorce, but that's very understandable, I think, so far as reasons to divorce someone.
Whole
maybe that's not the weird part. I'd heard there were stories of cheating going on or something like that, so.
What I realize is like a lot of these people are operating on like women's intuition, right? Because one of the weird things that I've learned is
yeah. Go on, brother.
As a psychiatrist is to
silly women.
I know it sounds weird. Believe my female patients. And I'm not trying to be like a champion of feminism here. I'm just saying, like when a patient comes into my office, my approach is, you know what, if a patient says something, let me at least see if it's true instead of assuming it's not true. And there's...
Well, I think there's something to that, especially if you're a psychologist. I think the name of the game is kind of getting inside of the head of your patient to see things from their perspective, right? I think there's always dangers in that. What if your client's kind of a psychopath or something? Do you really want to see things from the perspective of a psychopath? But the notion of getting inside someone's head does seemingly entail that you would assume that they at least believe some of the stuff they're saying. You'd at least just like employ it as a possible conclusion or a possible idea that you entertain.
Evidence that. So here's where I piss everybody off. Women's intuition is not significantly superior to men's intuition, but there are some features. What women are better at is like reading facial emotions. Okay, but if it matters to men, we are basically in the same ballpark. But women are able to detect discongruity. This is kind of my clinical take. So what I understand women's intuition to be is they can tell that something is off, but it doesn't tell them necessarily what the truth is. That's how I understand it based on my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a female patient and they tell me, hey, I think something bad is going to happen, like I think it's really worth digging into it because the conclusion that their mind jumps to is not necessarily correct, but the suspicion that their mind has absolutely is based on something. That's the assumption that I
It's kind of intriguing, yeah.
Operate under. Does that make sense? And that nuance, I think, is completely lost on social media. What fascinates me as a psychiatrist is like, hold on a second. So she's being tried by the state of Massachusetts for...
I'm just like, as a Christian, I'm thinking of the situation regarding Pilate's wife and Jesus. And she was the one telling him not to get involved. And I think... I don't know if he conceded to her wishes. I think he kind of tried to pardon Jesus, but didn't really go that way, and then he kind of just washed his hands or whatever. Pilates. I've heard it said that way. No, it's Pilate.
Murder.
Pontius Pilates. I heard that from a show. I didn't come up with that. There's the Corner Gas show, Canadian sitcom. Really good. Worth a watch if you get a chance.
So this is the government against Lindsay Clancy. And they're saying she murdered her children. Her defense is not that she did not kill her children. Her defense is that she was psychotic when it happened.
Yeah, brother.
There's a second lawsuit, which is she and her ex-husband, on behalf of their children, are suing all manner of psychiatric providers. It's a civil law.
Okay. Wait. Let me hear that again.
Their children are suing her ex-husband on behalf of their children are suing all manner of psychiatric providers.
So let me get that straight. She and her ex-husband are suing.
Lawsuit, which is she and her ex-husband, on behalf of their children, are suing all manner of psychiatric providers.
So they're still teaming up. That would seem to speak against the notion that he's in some way culpable, at least in her mind, which is not necessarily proof positive, but it's not nothing either.
It's a civil lawsuit that says, you guys did not take care of me appropriately. That's why my kids died. It's your fault that this happened. So what's really interesting to me about this is, like, even the defense does not dispute that she killed her children, sort of. And there's even on the record.
Well, the thing I've been hearing, I think the big question about it all is the question of what should happen to her. There are people saying, no, absolutely put her in prison. There are people maybe probably saying kill her or execute the crazy B word. And then there's people who are saying, no, she needs help, send her to a mental facility or something like that. This is a case of, mother going crazy because of postpartum psychosis or something.
She has confessed to killing her children. And yet this is still happening, right? A lot of people believe this. Now,
it feels like this is kind of a weird, it's not really a trolley problem, but it feels like it's kind of in that realm of, like, it's kind of one of those, the interesting thing about metaphors or stories, fables, etc., is it feels like they almost allow you to study a situation and to think about it in its purest form, absent like the practical application of it. Because this is a very abstract, very remote sort of possibility for people. But it feels like it can kind of be a case study in, okay, how do you think about this scenario and what happened here? How do you think about this type of process or happenstance going on? And how does that apply to other more everyday type of situations? And I guess in some cases they literally are saying, okay, I do like, because of your position on this, I don't know if I trust your safety around kids or my future kids. But I think it is kind of one of those, it's kind of functions a little bit like a trolley problem for kind of plumbing the depths of the human soul or conscience.
This is what's going to piss everybody off. So if you're someone who believes this, and I make this statement, you're already like, oh my God, Dr. K, you're one of them. You're one of the people who doesn't understand. You're one of the enemy. And then on the flip side, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, duh, bro. Like, duh, like she...
Duh, bro.
He confessed to killing. I don't understand how people can believe that this is not factually correct. Like, what on earth?
And again, I didn't know that she was still kind of working in consort with her ex-husband to sue the people who were caring for her.
Is going on? How is this guy like, what is going on? And this is where I get curious. How does someone get from the person herself claims or does not dispute that she killed her children to she's being framed? And this is where I'm going to piss everybody off, because this is exactly what's wrong with the world today. We have a world today where so many people are behaving so irrationally. And what we tend to do is make no attempt to understand. What we do is blame. What we do is call them stupid. And if you're like, haha, yeah, like all those stupid people, all those stupid women on the internet who are like, think that it's a conspiracy, they're all dumb. No, this is my point. I want y'all to understand this. This is happening across the globe to all manner of people. This is just one pimple that is like popping. The reason that there is so much conflict,
it's a very visceral, evocative type of metaphor
in the world. If you ask me, Dr. K, what is the one thing, if you had to pick one thing that is the root of the world's problems today, and I don't mean a person's problem, I mean the world's problems. Why is there so much strife? Why is there so much war? Why is there so much political stuff? Why is there a gender divide? Like, what is going on? We have birth rates that are low. Like, everything's getting worse. Why? And it's one simple thing, because we are no longer living in the same reality. So I've been...
Well, and that's one of those things, too, where it feels like people online are actively incentivized to be sensational. They're not incentivized. It's like kind of an extrapolation of, hey, did you hear what happened last week? But it's like orders of magnitude further along that thing. Right? Because this is their livelihood now. They can make a living by gossiping or talking about stuff in a very sensationalist fashion or blowing a story up. And by the time it gets where it's going, like, I like to think eventually people will figure the truth out. But until they figure it out, people can get very rowdy with regards to whatever the crap. So again, I think the whole social media, the whole interweb, the whole internet thing kind of blows up what already existed on a local scale type thing.
Following this trial, and I've been following this trial on Reddit, and my wife has been following this trial, and she's been following it on Instagram. And the interesting thing is that our perceptions of the trial are completely different. And the more...
See, that's actually an interesting point, because I think some of the people I were seeing were following it. Maybe they were following it on Instagram or something, but I think they were getting their information maybe not exactly from primary sources. So I tend to think that, like, as much as, you know, mainstream media has proved themselves untrustworthy to some extent, have occasionally marched in lockstep in order to get a certain type of message across, I think it's in their interest to be at least kind of somewhat reliable, and they tend to get their sources from a primary source versus people on Twitter or Instagram or whatever who are actively incentivized. Like, they don't really have a lot of culpability. People aren't going to point at them and say, why weren't you blah, blah, blah. Like, at least less so, I didn't think. So they are maybe more, for them, the balance of, you know, judging the risk and reward of the situation is far more towards make it sound funny, make it sound good, make it sound extreme, make it sound sensational. And again, I feel like in that case, that they might not be getting all their information. There might be a lot of surmise and speculation in their data collection and interpretation of the facts. The messages can get very garbled, it would seem.
That a human being gets data, like the more that they see something, and this is what algorithms are doing, I think, like, literally algorithms are destroying society. Because if I spend 8 hours a day in front of a screen and the platform is like, okay, we're going to give you what...
Again, I think it comes back to that. I guess it's me. I don't know if this is a hobby horse or not. But I was saying, I think it goes back to the notion of it takes something that already existed on a somewhat local level and extrapolates it. Takes it to an entirely higher level where, generally speaking, you probably tend to find friends that agree with you to some extent. So you create a little bit of a bubble of sorts, or a hug box. I think there would be certain people that are this way. I try not to just find friends that agree with me, but there would be a lot of people who would want to find people who agree with them to some extent to talk about stuff, right? To find things that confirm their bias. And now we have the internet, and you can really get down to business with regards to confirming your bias. There's a lot of people that are going to be able to do that for you. Wheels on the bus go round and round, so they say.
You like this is not a problem. Right now, the Dota 2 International is going on, so my feed is full of Dota 2 International stuff, which I love.
Pretty sure that's some sort of strategy game, maybe.
Like, that's why I use the platform, right? Like, I want to hear what's going on in the interview, who won, who lost, right? So this is the way the internet...
I think it has something to do with video games.
Like the whole purpose of the...
I'm not sure if it's a strategy. I was trying to recall what I remember seeing about that, but I think it's some sort of...
internet is that when you use it, it shows you things that you're interested in. But somehow we have gotten so good at this that we have now become distorted from reality. So Lindsay Clancy's...
Well, I guess I would say hyper focused on certain realities, which is kind of the foundation to my mind of delusion. It's not that you're seeing something that isn't there. It's just that you're so hyper fixated on this one thing that everything else is negligible. Now that's the distortion part, I tend to think.
Fans have raised over $700,000 for her after she killed her three.
I'd heard that kind of maybe fell through a little bit or something like that. I'm not for sure. Maybe she got the money and then they just shut it off or something.
Children, while on a cocktail of prescribed psychiatric drugs. She's about to be jailed for life for something her husband did. He killed the kid.
Mm-hmm.
His was the voice that she heard. He threw her out the window. She woke up and did what she was told. Since this trial has started, I have not been okay. Women didn't hear voice in that diary. We heard our own. She loved those babies with her heart. She carried the entire mental load. So if a woman kills her children, and millions of women across the internet.
See, I wonder how many of these people genuinely believe what they're saying and how many of them are just throwing a sensational opinion out there. And how many of them might walk it back once they get what they want or once it's no longer advantageous to hold this opinion. It feels like, again, people are actively incentivized to be sensational, to throw out opinions that are going to get people to be extremely pissed off. It's, yeah.
Support her, raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can say that these women are all brain rotted from conspiracy theories. I think there's an element of that is actually true. But this is something that a lot of people do not understand. It seems so irrational. I don't get it.
And see, that's the thing. I like the notion of trying to entertain other people's point of view, but I also don't think every perspective is valid. I don't think every perspective is actually a perspective at all. Sometimes people are lying. They are misrepresenting their own viewpoints. Sometimes they don't always believe things for a good reason. Sometimes their beliefs only really have to make sense on a very shallow level, and they fudge the rest of it because they want to believe the thing for whatever reason. I think if a person truly believes a thing, it probably makes sense, at least on a very specious sort of level, but it doesn't have to make good sense, and sometimes they are just straight out misrepresenting their ideas. So it's one of those things where you want to make sure it's actually a valid perspective, I tend to think.
So this is something that I've learned as a psychiatrist. Shocking thing. One of the most important things I've ever learned as a psychiatrist is that people, for the most part, 99% of people, 99% of the time, I don't know if that's statistically correct, ballpark, let's say 95% of people, 95% of the time, are not behaving irrationally. Irrespective of whether you think there's rationality or not, one thing we can all agree on is there's an incredible emotional energy that is coming out of us, evoked from us, triggered by this trial if you're following it. And that's what I want to get into today. Because if you want to understand what's going on with the Lindsay Clancy trial, not just in terms of the courtroom, but what's going on in society, you have to understand that. Why is everyone getting so caught up? Okay, so step number one, there's two legal proceedings. Number one is the state of Massachusetts against Lindsay Clancy for murder. Second thing is there's a civil lawsuit from Lindsay Clancy and her ex-husband. So they are suing the psychiatric provider. So this is the civil complaint. This is a wrongful death brought by Patrick Clancy individually as personal representative of the estates of his deceased children. Patrick's wife, Lindsay Clancy, is alleged to have murdered Cora, Dawson, and Kaylin. Prior to the alleged murder, Lindsay sought medical treatment for anxiety and increasingly deteriorating mental health condition. Lindsay began her career as a nurse working at the Massachusetts General Hospital, my alma mater. Patrick and Lindsay jumped into parenthood and worked together to provide the best possible environment to raise their children. This is the plaintiff, right? This is their case. This is not the truth. This is a civil lawsuit in which these people are alleging, these are their claims, right? So when someone sues you for doing something bad, they are going to omit lots of stuff that let you off the hook.
Yeah, they certainly want to present the best possible picture to identify external force as the causal factor here. Right, it's nothing we did. It's kind of obvious. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's not going to be
I have to say something, don't I?
fair, right? Which is another really important thing you need to understand about this trial. No one is trying to be fair. No one is trying to be correct. The
That's probably true.
prosecution has a job. The defense has a job. The civil case has a plaintiff that has a job. It's your fault. And the defense in that case is going to say, it's not my fault, it's your fault. Okay, so everyone...
Well, it's kind of like the essence of a trial is that you're like no one has to bear all the load except for the judge. The judge has to be fair, but everyone else is just trying to plead their case.
Has an angle. No one is talking about the truth. In order to spend more time at home with their children, Lindsay...
So I don't know if he's saying that about trials in general. He might just be saying about this.
He began working part-time night shifts in the MGH labor and delivery unit. So this is an important point. Then she has Kaylin, who I think is her third.
Patrick returned to work approximately 16 weeks after Kaylin was born. And while he was able to work from home, for the first time, Lindsay was challenged with taking care of their 3 children single-handedly during weekdays. So I assume she took care of the other 2 beforehand, but now she has to take care of 3. Lindsay was also faced with her own return to work at the end of the summer. At the end of September 2022, previously to him. So this is a while back, right? The time period leading to the end of her parental leave had been a difficult time for Lindsay, and it resulted in anxiety.
Child. Patrick returned to work approximately 12 weeks after Kaylin was born, and while he was able to work from home, for the first time, Lindsay was challenged with
This is coming on about 4 years since then, right?
taking care of 3 children single-handedly during the weekdays. We're going to play a fun game, chat. And this game is going to be read Dr. K's mind. Why did Dr. K highlight this passage?
Hold on, let me think. Patrick returns to work approximately 12 weeks after Callan was born, and while he was able to work from home for the first time, Lindsay was challenged with taking care of 3 children single-handedly during the days. Maybe it represents her as... Unless he's trying to identify why women are thinking it's his fault. Like he's being insensitive or something.
What do you think is the importance of this? Taking care of kids during the day while also working the night shift. Was husband unable to help, not sleeping? If he's working from home, how is it single-handed? It's not the beginning of the decline. Okay, so this is really important. In bipolar disorder, the best medicine is sleep. The moment that your circadian rhythm gets messed up, you increase your risk of problems with bipolar disorder. One of the key symptoms of bipolar disorder is inability to sleep. So this, I think, is an important data point. Dr. Tufts treated Lindsay from on or about September 15th to 2023, prescribed a variety of different medications, but failed to monitor her reactions to these medications or to attend her worsening psychiatric conditions. Remember, this is the civil suit. I personally don't think that this is the case based on what I've seen. And I think most psychiatrists and most mental health professionals don't really consider this to be a failure of treatment, FYI. A lot of people will criticize.
Oh, it'd maybe be worth doing to look into the Dr. Tufts thing to see if he has any other cases where people claim this type of thing, if he is being negligent or something. But
Decision.
There's every chance that they are just they want to pass the buck in some regard or to get some money somehow.
That get made, especially by the mental health professionals. So I want to talk about this for a second. The defense attorney finds this in Dr. Tufts's notes and says the patient was paranoid for getting suicidal ideation. She was worried that she would become suicidal. And basically says, like, why didn't you do more? This trial is a great example of a lot of stuff sounds bad. It sounds really bad.
Well, and here's one thing. Like, a lot of people point out that she killed her kids and then jumped out of the window, and that means she's insane. But I also thought of, like, parallel cases. I say parallel cases. But a lot of school shooters kill people and then try to commit suicide, right? So it doesn't feel like that's necessarily a point that says, oh, she's innocent, completely innocent. She would have never done anything like this otherwise. Like killing your kids, maybe the fact that she's crazy, put it this way, I think the fact that she's crazy does not mean she didn't mean to do it necessarily. In the case of a school shooter who tries to kill themselves, yes, maybe that means they're crazy, but also they're kind of a bad person. So maybe she is crazy. Maybe there were other factors like comorbidities or whatever the crap, but it doesn't mean she's necessarily a good person.
But I want y'all to play the tape through to the end. If you are someone who is not suicidal, should your doctor hospitalize you because you are worried about getting suicidal? What is the appropriate...
I don't know if it's like suicidal ideation is like a lot of people worry about a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean something in and of itself.
Course of action when something could happen. If you get hospitalized for the possibility of suicidality, then when does that end? So this is what's really challenging about being a psychiatrist. There's a great
I would imagine you would probably need some sort of diagnosis.
Paper from, I think, Matt Nock that basically shows that about 50 to 60% of suicide attempts happen within 5 minutes of making the decision. That generally speaking, suicidality is a highly impulsive act. This whole like media idea of like, oh, putting all your affairs in order and all this kind of stuff is like not usually what happens. It's
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I mentioned something about this, and I think then I had deleted it. But I had seen some statistic where it's like, I'm thinking a very significant minority to a pretty significant majority of the people who commit suicide are on something. I'm thinking the statistic I saw was with regards to drinking. One of them had said up to like 60% of the people who commit suicide are drinking or something. It feels like there's a lot of instincts. There's a lot of bells and whistles in your brain that start going off when you try to kill yourself. And people who really want to do that on a theological level or on some sort of instinctive emotional level or something like that, I tend to think it's not rational. But if they're trying to do that and they want to get over the hill, so to speak, so they can actually do it, it feels like you would maybe need some sort of substance, or that taking some sort of substance would put you in the state of mind where you were actually capable of doing it. Where you would your sense of perspective is perhaps nullified, I guess.
Highly impulsive and highly acute. So this trial has a lot of like armchair quarterbacking. Hindsight is 2020, except it's not 2020. What it has is a lot of oversimplification of complicated things. So I think because a lot of this stuff is on like short form content, right? And this is why like I don't like short form content.
Now, how did we get here? So after her third kid was born, she started losing her mind.
I already don't trust this woman. Just pointing that out.
Postpartum anxiety, depression,
Bandana, rings, she looks like a gypsy.
paranoia, insomnia, and evolving psychosis. And in 2022, she started telling mom and husband that she was having thoughts of killing her kids and started seeking big-time medical help. Now, at this point, she's on at least 12 different medications.
So this is the kind of stuff that I think is really scary, because I think a lot of people will comment and they'll summarize, but she's not on 12 different medications. This is what her medication regimen looked like, and we'll get more into this. This is where she's not on 12 medications. She was prescribed 12 medications, which is like really, really different from being on 12 medications, okay? So this is where like a lot of people will like simplify, but this is like...
See, like, and I guess I don't know what the timeline is here of like when she was prescribed all of these things and if she could or would have been taking all of them simultaneously.
Important stuff. Being prescribed 12 medications is not the same as being on 12 medications.
No, someone's sweeping for the medical practice.
Medications. The problem is that if you
Doctors, it was all the doctor's fault.
want to put together a timeline like this, you have to like sit down and look through her prescribing history.
Don't bring your rationality in.
So this too, like these kinds of things of instead of working to identify the source of Lindsay's condition, I don't accept that that Dr. Tufts didn't do that. Like I think that's actually what was going on. There's one psychiatrist, Dr. Tufts. Then there's Julie Paul, who's a nurse practitioner at a different program, who is now independently, as far as I can tell, I don't know if they're part of the same healthcare system or what, prescribing medications, right? So by mid-November, her insomnia became so bad that she was sleeping approximately 3 hours a night, went to the emergency room, prescribed trazodone, right? So now an emergency room physician is prescribing something in an attempt to assist her daughter-in-law, Patrick's mother, a nurse at South Shore Health. So now what we've got is we've got the mother-in-law calling someone that she knows from work and is like, hey, can you help my daughter-in-law, right? So this person is like, of course. So now we've got a third person prescribing medications. And then this also is, to me is wild, personally. Like, I don't know exactly what the situation was, but to prescribe...
One thing, I've heard that when you start mixing medications, weird stuff can happen. I don't know if you're necessarily supposed to do that, and you probably want to get yourself entirely off the previous medication before you start something new. So, like, it can, anecdotally, I have heard bad things about that type of stuff. I think that's pretty solid as a thing. Like, you don't want to necessarily mix different types of stuff. It can interact in unfortunate ways.
Ambien, Klonopin, and...
To be fair, we did actually have a case in where we live where a guy we knew had ended up killing his wife and himself. I think he had maybe been on some stuff. I don't know. Again, I don't think that type of thing can necessarily be rational. So, like, maybe there's something to the notion that, yes, she is insane, but I don't know if that entirely justifies, like, it. Again, I'm going to go back to the notion, she didn't just kill one kid. This wasn't, like, it feels like it's hard to represent it as just a crime of passion, just some sort of, oh, she got angry and she had a moment of craziness or whatever. She killed 3 kids, all in a row. That's not great as far as how it looks for her.
And Remeron all at once, I think is like, doesn't sound great. So if you get a good night's sleep, which one of these bad boys is responsible? Now, it's very possible that, because this is the other kind of detailed thing, we don't actually have the prescribing pattern in lawsuits like this, right? So one of these may have been a standing medication, Remeron every night, Klonopin as needed once in the evening, and Ambien for like breakthrough. Even to me, that sounds excessive to prescribe 3 things all at once. But I think what this shows is that she was in immense distress, which she kind of talks about quite a bit. Reported to Nurse Paul, she was still struggling to continue with sleep, feels disoriented, forgetful, not connected to my body. This, by the way, is one of the features of psychosis. If you guys want to know what psychosis looks like, this is what psychosis can look like. And do we screen for all of these things? Absolutely not. Like body disintegration, somatic depersonalization, bodily estrangement, boom, right? So here's what's really interesting. If you go through Lindsay Clancy's complaints, you will see a lot of this stuff. This is like...
Just like bodily estrangement.
Very hard to use clinically because insurance will not pay for it.
Like, I suppose I get the maybe the notion of it, but it still seems kind of strange that you like... I think would maybe be a thing where, like, logically, you know this is your body, you know that you are you, but there's just kind of a feeling or some sort of maybe hormonally or medically induced type of weird crap going on.
For this. And for a psychiatrist to go through these takes about an hour. The only place that I've ever really been able to use the ease is on inpatients who are there 24 hours a day, who are hospitalized for psychosis, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I assume most sessions would... I don't know.
So then Nurse Gelada enters the picture. So like now we have another provider involved, is reporting so she's getting physically dependent on benzos in order to sleep. Mind is constantly running, is feeling overwhelmed, feeling afraid that something awful might happen. Then she reports that she has experienced intrusive thoughts of wanting to die and contacted Aspire Crisis Support over the weekend. So now there's another group of people involved. So then the symptoms presented by Lindsay caused Nurse Gelada to ask if she was having thoughts of harming herself or children. So now this gets really interesting. Denied having such thoughts, but has this vague sense that something bad might happen. So now we have a psychiatric provider who's actually asking her, right? So this is good. Like the nurse practitioner is like, hey, are you going to hurt somebody, including yourself or anybody else? And she's like, no. So now the question is, now what happens? So do you hospitalize someone against their will? So Patrick called Nurse Gelada's office, asked for a call back, and made it clear that Gelada's office that it was fairly urgent. When Patrick and Lindsay spoke to Nurse Gelada, they advised her that Lindsay was still experiencing panic and suicidal ideation. Nurse Gelada advised Lindsay to continue taking the med.
That's the thing, like worrying about something bad happening. Like, again, how do you exactly prescribe for that? How do you do anything? I guess she is saying that she's experiencing suicidal ideation. I guess I don't know. It feels like at this point, like a husband might have grounds for wanting to take the kids and put them or take the mother and put her in a more safe environment, or like either take the kids and put them in a different environment, or take the mother and put her in a different environment. Seems like she's not in a good way.
Medication, right? And this is also where like all the conspiracy theorists who are saying like, oh, Patrick was like a bad dude who was not supportive. And it's like, hey, he's calling the nurse practitioner and he's like worried about his wife. And he's like, hey, this is not working.
That's exactly what she would do if he were trying to frame her. You smell what I'm putting down? Sorry, that sounds weird. You're picking up what I'm putting down.
January 16th, no suicidal ideation. And then on 24th, she began... did so because she started hearing a compelling and unrecognizable singular male voice that told her this is your last chance, and that she had to take them with her. She also reported the voice indicated to her that she should die, that this is her last chance.
She kind of sounds crazy at this point.
And that her children would suffer if she was gone.
Oh, hold on. Let's see. Has been accused of killing Cora Dawson Callan while Patrick was briefly out of the family home on the evening. Well, this happened. Okay, so I was thinking this just happened recently. The trial is now. This happened in 2023. Okay, beginning of 2023. Cora and Dawson died that same day. Callahan succumbed to his injuries and died on January 27th, 2023. So he was alive for a couple days more. According to the medical records, Lindsay did so because she started... Well... Yeah. I feel like at that point, as like a father, you would maybe want to get the kids out of there. But
Lindsay then cut her wrists and neck and jumped out of a second-floor window in her home. She fell apart.
And I believe she is now a paraplegic or something because of this.
Approximately 20 feet to the ground below and suffered traumatic spinal cord injuries. She is now paralyzed below the sternum. So let's talk about what's happening. What is the prognosis for postpartum psychosis? So this happens in about 1 to 3 women per 1,000 live births, which first of all is like really high. About 10,000 babies are born each day in the US. Let's say 2 per 1,000 live births, which means postpartum psychosis is happening to 20 people every single day. In the US. This is not a rare condition. And postpartum...
And again, like, that's the point. Like, women do go through this. Not many of them, I think, try to kill their kids or themselves.
Psychosis is extreme. So the thing to understand is this stuff is a...
I'll try to listen to the rest of this section here, but I think that's...
bell curve. So, you know, the number of people who get postpartum psychosis is like 2%, but what percentage of people get close to postpartum psychosis, or 50% of the way there, or get severe depression? That number is astronomically higher. And this is something that I think we don't really understand as a society, is that this is like way more common than people realize. And that for every one person it happens to, there's probably a dozen or 100 or 200 or 300 people that get halfway there. So,
well, and beyond that, I think there might even be issues with the notion of like depression. It's one of those things where I don't think you tend to fully appreciate the things that didn't happen, and people who might just not go in to be diagnosed, people who might just cope with it somehow and get over it without medical intervention. You're only hearing about the people who actually go in and get diagnosed, who get medication for this stuff. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, I've thought of this before. Is it that everyone has murderous intent and some people are just less self-restrained? Is it that all these women do have, like, postpartum psychosis, but some of them are just better at handling it than others? Like, how much of it is just everyone has this thing and just only a few people act on it because they lack the self-restraint? Or is it that a couple of people have it to an extreme degree and therefore it's harder for them to manage it? It's kind of iffy.
I think this is going to be like, we talk about the messed up American healthcare system. And I think
I think we'll leave it there. You guys can check out the rest if you like. Crazy case, crazy person. Again, I don't know, maybe she's insane. Maybe she should go to a mental asylum. But in any case, I feel like the fact that she had these issues does not... Maybe I should compare it, but in the case of school shooters, just the fact that they kill themselves might mean they're insane, but it doesn't mean they're good people. And again, 3 kids, not 1 kid. Not some sort of struggle session where she accidentally just got angry and hit someone. 3 kids in sequence, then jumping out the window. It doesn't seem very... It doesn't seem to lend itself to her moral fiber or to her innocence of wrongdoing. She seems kind of like that would indicate a more pathological, planned out, what's the word they use? Premeditated. And that's kind of what it seems. Yeah, no. It's just speculation, I guess. But no. I don't know if that's just speculation. That seems that seems logical to me. That there is, because of how many people are involved, because it was all done in sequence, and while the husband was out, it might not have just been a spur of the moment thing. It might have been something she planned, and it might have been something intentional, more intentional at least. All right, moving on. The Smallest and Angriest Country in the World by Wendigang. Let's hear it. I'm kind of digging this music too.
What you're hearing right now is the national anthem of a country with no airport, no roads,
Principality of Sealand.
no farmland, and on most days, 1 permanent resident. Its entire territory is a rusting military platform, roughly the size of 2 tennis courts, standing in the North
That's just weird.
Sea, 7 miles off the coast
Cool, but weird.
of England. There is no beach where visitors can land. To enter the country, you arrive by boat, climb into what looks like a backyard swing, and allow somebody 60 feet above you to hoist you over the waves with a crane. Once you clear these customs, you can tour the National Chapel, the National Gym, the royal bedrooms, and the prison. They are all inside the same pair of hollow concrete towers, and several of them may technically be the same room. This is the Principality of Sealand, a self-declared nation founded by British war veteran Roy Bates. Roy claimed an abandoned World War II.
Hey, it looks like the type. Just thinking World War. Was it World War II? Or I'm assuming World War II, right? World War I would be.
Founded by British war veteran Roy Bates.
It says war veteran, so it doesn't say which war.
Roy claimed an abandoned World War II fort in the 1960s, declared himself
So it probably would have been World War II, though. I'm just thinking with the timeline or whatever the crap.
prince, made his wife a princess for her birthday, issued a constitution, minted coins, printed stamps, fired warning shots at British vessels, survived an attempted coup, yes, I'm not kidding, launched
What the Harry?
a helicopter counterattack, imprisoned a foreign invader for treason, and prompted a West German diplomat to negotiate for the man's release. Everything I just said is real, and we'll talk about it. That sounds less like the history of a country and more like a campaign from a video game. But Sealand has now existed for nearly
It's got a different background. I wonder if you moved somewhere.
60 years. It has a flag, a national motto, a royal family, an anthem, a currency, passports, noble tickets, an athletic team or teams.
You must be pretty well to do for all this stuff to be feasible, right? You would think so, anyways.
Kind of immigration rituals, and a government website willing to sell you the rank of.
Okay, now I'm curious about the immigration rituals. I just hear the word ritual and I'm thinking like dark room, men in hoods, some sort of beating of sticks or something. Probably have to strip down and they have to beat you with sticks. That's what's going through my head. Just saying.
Duke, which, I mean, we all know what I have to do, right? It has also been linked to pirate radio. I mean, we all know what a government website willing to sell you the rank of Duke, which.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all know what I have to do, right? It has also been linked to pirate radio.
Wasn't there a thing for a while? I'd seen it on like Daily Wire stuff, I think a lot, where they would sell. No, it wasn't just Daily Wire. I think I'd seen Alex Steele do some stuff with regards to it as well, like where they would sell you a plot of land in Scotland and let you become a lord. I guess that means your wife could become a lady or something too.
Fake passport ring, an offshore internet haven, and a wildly ambitious real estate listing. The whole 9 yards, which coincidentally is about half the country's size. But when does pretending to be a country become functionally different from actually being another country? Roy Bates found a physical place the British government had abandoned and a legal gap it had not yet closed. His family then and filled that gap with ceremonies, documents, armed resistance, and a staggering commitment to the bit. Other countries do not officially recognize Sealand. Britain almost certainly has the strongest legal claim over it today. And yet, the Bates family still controls the platform. The flag still flies, the anthem still plays, a customs officer still waits at the top of the crane. So today, we're traveling into the North Sea to explore how a wartime gun platform became the world's most famous micronation, and why the British government once worried it might become another Cuba. How a teenage prince helped win.
I guess technically you could store military stuff there. I'm assuming that's what they mean. It's like given the landmassers, now we would become like Cuba in most practical senses. But as far as like military bases, something can happen maybe.
In the world's smallest war, and whether Sealand is a real country, an elaborate family business, or the most successful piece of maritime performance art ever attempted, or a little bit of all of those things. So hello everybody, today we're talking about the history of the smallest and potentially angriest nation in the world, Sealand. I've always heard of Sealand. I didn't think much of it, mostly thought it was more of a joke, but after seeing all of this, if it is a joke, is the most elaborate and committed joke I think I've ever seen. And also, every detail about this is more absurd than the last, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. Speaking of supporting me, the No Trace Club merch drop has like another.
I like the t-shirt at least.
4 or 5 days on it, so check that out in the link in the description at wendigoon.shop if you're interested. And those are ways that you can support me. But now I need to talk about someone else that's already supported me by having me show you all a thing that can support you if you want.
It sounds weird. It sounds suspect.
For free. Hey look, there's me an eyeliner.
I'm in a hotel room because I just saw My Chemical Romance in Nashville. It was fantastic. You should have seen my eyeliner. But I know that when you're trying to budget for concerts or trips, it can be a headache, especially when you don't know where all.
It's actually. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. I was just thinking that, like, eyeliner is one of the, like, craziest makeup tricks almost ever in my mind. Like, it can completely mess with the way, or mess with how you perceive a face. Like, there would be few things that would do it as much as that.
Your money is going, and some of it's money, and that Rocket Money does that. For one, accounts and savings goals are on one dashboard. You not only have a bird's eye view of all of your finances, but all of your streaming services now. I'll have apps that I got a free trial on to watch something one time that I didn't know I've been paying for like a year. You can living. From there, Rocket Money Rocket Money will send you where your money's going. And if you're looking to get in on Rocket Money, then now's the perfect time. That's because if you head to
There you go. Something Rocket Money Wendigang.
The link in the description at rocketmoney.com/windowgang, or scan the QR code. You can get started on Rocket Money for free. That's right, for free. From there, if you like what the app has to offer, you can sign up for premium to get even more features. But for now, you can just try it out for yourself for free. Again, either the QR code or the link in the description at rocketmoney.com/windowgang to get started saving your money today. Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring the channel. Their link will be in the description, and we are now back to the video.
We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. Anyway, Sealand. Sealand sits on HM Fort Ruffs, also known as Ruffs Tower, near the shipping approaches to Harwick and Felixstowe on the eastern coast.
Okay, the only time I remember something like this was from a Monty Python, where they were telling you how not to be caught. And they were blowing up stuff, trying to kill the people who were hiding. It is a really funny skit. But, like, what is this exactly? Is it just some sort of, like, thing they can set up on a beach somewhere so they can have somewhere to sleep or whatever? Like I don't think we would have any equivalent to this type of thing in America.
Of England.
Or maybe it's some sort of changing room, too. I'm not for sure.
From a distance, it looks like an oil platform that has been abandoned by both the oil company and God. Two enormous concrete cylinders rise out of the water, supporting a wide steel deck about 60 feet.
See, I would have thought oil platforms would have had more going on than just two. Like, I would expect, like, at least 4 or something like that, but, you know.
Feet above the sea. On that deck are railings,
That's not my specialty.
antenna, small buildings, cranes, solar panels, wind turbines, and the red, white, and black flag of Sealand. There is no natural land. The ground, so to speak, is metal. The borders of the nation end where the deck ends, and then there is a long drop into freezing water. The platform's concrete base measures roughly 168 by 88 feet, and each of its 2 cylindrical legs, divided into 7 floors that once held crew quarters, storage, generators, ammunition, and machinery. The upper deck originally carried radar equipment and...
See, I've thought of something like that you could do with, like, a silo, like for farming type of thing. If you had a big enough silo or something like that, you could probably do some sort of, like, cylindrical room type setup. Kind of interesting as an idea, I think.
Anti-aircraft guns. Supplies arrived by ship and were lifted aboard with a crane. The same system that, more than 8 years later, remains the basic immigration infrastructure. When 60 Minutes visited Sealand, the reporter entered by sitting in a small sling and being winched upward from a moving boat. Inside, the crew found a bench press serving as the national gym, 2 candles functioning as the national
gym. I don't know if I've ever heard of such a thing.
chapel, and sleeping quarters so low in the towers that the sea slapped against the walls mere inches from the bed. The towers are cramped, damp, and industrial. Visitors descend through narrow passageways into a space described as part treehouse and part diesel-soaked submarine. At the bottom is
how long would this thing last? I guess I don't know how long it was built to last, but you think, like, it's concrete, and it's got to be eroding to some extent, right? Like, when is this thing just gonna not blow up, like sink into the ocean or fall over or something?
Small jail should anyone get out of line. Michael, the prince of the small nation, once described the sentence as bread, water, and 2 days in the brig. When asked what rights the Sealand Constitution offered a prisoner, he answered, quote, very limited. Which, what do you mean by that, Michael? What do you mean the Constitution's very limited for the, like, what, 1, maybe 2 guys you've ever had to put down there? Princess Penny Bates, Roy's daughter, remembered the early years as bitterly cold and without electricity. Flushing the toilet meant lowering a bucket roughly 80 feet into the North Sea, hauling the water back up, and pouring it into the tank. Fresh water, food, fuel, and repair materials all had to be brought by boat, meaning a bout of bad weather could delay a supply run for weeks. Prince Michael Bates recalled watching the horizon for the family boat, expecting it in 2 weeks, and sometimes waiting 6. This was the Sealand Royal Palace. Buckingham Palace has 775 rooms. Sealand had 2 concrete legs and an outhouse level pumping system, and a view that mostly consisted of gray water. But the tower was never designed for comfort. It was designed for war. See, during World War II, Britain faced a serious problem in the Thames estuary. German aircraft could bomb London.
I've said ossuary, I think. Maybe. No, okay, this might be a different word than I'm thinking of. Estuary might be its own thing. Estuary.
Attack the country's enormous dock system, and drop mines into one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. The British needed weapons positioned farther out to sea, where enemy pilots did not expect them. So, civil engineer Guy Mansell designed a network of offshore forts that could be constructed in harbor, towed into position, and deliberately sunk onto sandbanks. Ruff's Tower was one of these Mansell forts. Its massive pontoon base was floated into the North Sea and then flooded, settling into about 37 feet of water. Once grounded, the 2 concrete towers remained visible above the surface with the steel gun deck on top. Instead of building an island, Britain built a fortified machine and planted it in the ocean. The Mansell forts carried searchlights,
It's pretty cool.
heavy anti-aircraft weapons, and Bofors cannons. Bofors cannons, more like Bofa cannons, meaning both of these cannons. They protect shipping from mine-laying aircraft, fired on bombers headed toward London, and later targeted B-1 flying bombs. Across the network, the Thames forts were credited with destroying more than 20 enemy aircraft and over 30 V-1s. Life aboard them, though, was punishing. More than 100 servicemen would be placed into the towers, dependent on the aforementioned supply boats for relief. The men slept and worked inside concrete cylinders surrounded by machinery, salty air, and the vibration of the sea. The installations remained under care and maintenance for years, but the last full-time military...
I'm trying to think of how it would feel if my dad just decided, yeah, we're going to go out to the middle of the ocean, and we're going to live there from now on. Like, that would be a kick in the head.
Personnel left by the mid-50s. The weapons were removed and the machinery deteriorated. Salt water ate at the metal, birds nested on the deck, and the British government stopped treating the platform as a useful military site. That level of abandonment created the opening that Roy Bates needed, or as he would soon be, King Roy Bates. See, Britain had built Ruff's Tower, occupied it, and paid for it. But the fort itself sat just beyond the country's old territorial limit of about 3 nautical miles. As long as nobody cared about a decaying slab of steel and concrete in the North Sea, the legal distinction didn't matter very much. Then pirate radio arrived, and with it, Roy Bates. So let's talk about the guy who decided to turn this little dock into a
What's pirate radio?
kingdom. Patrick Roy Bates was born in 1921 and spent most of his life treating caution as a personal insult. At 15, he volunteered.
Hey, sometimes, inaction is also a risk, so.
Volunteered with the International Brigades.
Skepticism is all well and good until it's not.
To fight General
Caution is all well and good until it's not.
Francisco Franco in the Spanish Civil War. During World War II, he served in North Africa, the Middle East, and Italy, rising to the rank of major. He was seriously wounded by a grenade and later escaped captivity after a plane crash. After the war, he moved through a string of businesses before operating fishing boats along the English coast. So as you can probably tell, Roy was a pretty tough guy. He was tall, resourceful, forceful, stubborn, and equipped with the public relations instincts of the kind of guy that answers the door with a shotgun. One visitor recalled that Roy's standard
That's good, funny. Hold on.
of the kind of guy that answers the door with a shotgun. One visitor recalled that Roy's standard greeting was not exactly, quote, "Welcome to Sealand," but instead a demand to know what the visitor wanted, decorated with a word you two would prefer I don't say. Take your pick. Whatever the worst one you can think of is. Just imagine.
I'm just imagining some sort of slur, so.
It's that. Roy called his crew the,
Nondescript slur.
quote, "hard bastards of the North Sea." His obituary would describe him as one of the ragtag group of entrepreneurs who saw offshore radio as a gold mine and bullied his way onto abandoned forts against rival broadcasters and the British government. Even the
Wait, so offshore radio could probably get away with stuff that English radio maybe wouldn't?
People who loved him seemed unsure where the sincerity ended and the joke began. That level of ambiguity would define Sealand. Roy was an absurdist with military training. He understood theater, but he was also willing to defend the theater with live ammunition. In 1949, he married Joan Collins, and together they had 2 children, Penelope, usually called Penny, and Michael. Joan had worked as a model and carnival queen, and like many first ladies, she was elegant, composed, and apparently willing to follow her husband onto a freezing anti-aircraft fort with no reliable electricity. Remember, fellas, if she ain't willing to do that, that's not love.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying that feels like it would be a stretch for most women. They would, I mean, hey, good on her for being loyal to her husband.
Sure, she might tell you that she's sane and just wants the best for her family and please let the kids back in, but you don't need haters like that in your life. Roy's politics are also difficult to reduce to a clean label. He hated being told what to do and fervently resisted government control. He was attracted to business opportunities operating at the edge of the law. His son later portrayed Sealand as an expression of freedom, independence, and the right to live outside unwanted authority. But Roy did not begin with a plan to create a nation. He began with a plan to play music.
It's kind of interesting to like look at the notion of like, if you're forming a new country, what would be the essential kind of tenets of this new government you're creating? Like, what is it that just becomes kind of the fluff of society as far as like litigious judicial practice, and what is actually essential to it? It feels like over time we tend to acquire a lot of like secondary expressions of what we would consider actual justice and morality, and it gets a little bit fuzzy as to like point being, doing the lawful thing is not always doing the right thing, especially like where we've gotten to as a country at this point. It's become a very bloated type of system of laws. But like, how intuitively does all of that link back to something that's actually foundational or essential?
Gosh, that sentence makes him sound so cool. In the early 1960s, he began with a plan to create a nation. He began with a plan to play music. Gosh, that sentence makes him sound so cool. In the early 1960s, the British Broadcasting Corporation dominated radio in the United Kingdom. Young listeners wanted the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, American rock and roll, energetic presenters, and music that they could hear during normal waking hours. The BBC offered relatively little of it. Entrepreneurs, or guys who knew how to broadcast from a radio, responded by anchoring ships outside British waters and turning abandoned sea forts into unauthorized radio stations. Gosh, that's so cool, because Britain's so
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
lame. They have so many stupid laws, and they're so lame. Like a TV license, could you imagine?
That is one thing that is like utterly idiotic. I feel like I've heard that is not a thing that's really enforced. But like, what the heck, man? Why? Just why?
Imagine the concept of that. So guys just start throwing boats off the shore and playing the music they want to. It's like Footloose, but instead of a town, it's a whole nation where they have crooked teeth and talk about tea. At least all schools. Anyway, at its peak, this pirate radio.
There's stereotypes. So they'll say, well, at least we don't have school shootings or something. I think they have far fewer guns, and most of them tend to be hunting weapons.
Attracted.
I think you have to have a license to own a gun.
An estimated 22 million listeners.
There was actually a whole thing where I think we had done a thing where we were looking at Australia, and there was some sort of glitch in the law that allowed you to have a gun if there was some sort of hunting club involved. So people would start hunting club. I don't know if, I assume they were actual real hunting clubs, maybe. But they would start hunting clubs for the sake of allowing people to get guns. I think it was a whole thing.
In Britain, the stations used informal host, aggressive promotion, and non-stop popular music to serve an audience. The official system.
I guess I don't know if they were real hunting clubs or not, but it feels like there were some of them were. What I'm pointing out is that I think there were some of them where it started kind of primarily for the purpose of allowing people to have guns.
System had ignored. British authorities worried about the humiliating fact that millions of citizens preferred listening to people broadcasting from a rusty boat. The mere existence of pirate radio challenged the power and authority of the British government. Roy entered into the world of pirate radio in 1965. He and a group of men took over Knock John Fort, ejecting a rival crew and converting the platform into what they would call
Ejecting?
Radio Essex. Using old military equipment and an American radio beacon, the station became one of Britain's first full-time commercial pirate broadcasts. Roy was not the most polished voice in pirate radio. In fact, he was much more confrontational. In 1966, he was convicted under the Wireless Telegraphy Act and fined for operating Radio Essex. In response, Roy renamed Radio Essex, quote, Britain's Better Music Station, which was the broadcasting equivalent of putting on a fake mustache after being identified by the police. And just how I imagine that would work with the police, his operation was shut down soon afterward. The Marine Broadcasting Offenses Act of 1967 then targeted the people on land who supplied, advertised on, or worked offshore stations.
I kind of want to look at that. Arrangement of sections. Prohibition of broadcasting from ships and aircraft. Prohibition of broadcasting from marine structures. Prohibition of acts connected with broadcasting from certain ships and aircraft and from marine structures outside the United Kingdom. Prohibition of acts facilitating broadcasting. Prohibition of acts relating to matter broadcast ship. Penalties in legal proceedings. Special defense available in proceedings for carrying goods of persons in contravention of section. Saving for things done under a wireless telegraphy license. Interpretation power to extend act to Isle of Man and Channel Islands. Short title and commencement.
On land who supplied, advertised on, or worked offshore stations, and most of them closed as a result. Radio Caroline continued in defiance, while the BBC absorbed the format it had once tried to suppress. BBC Radio 1 launched in September of 1967, hired former pirate disc jockeys, and played the music young listeners had demanded. Sure, pirate radio may have lost the legal battle, but they won the culture war. Which, I mean, it's so stupid. I mean, I could talk for hours about stupid laws and ways people have acted stupid, but I feel like if I was in Britain, I would be so much worse. Like, could you imagine me right now dropped over there where it's like, oh, you want to listen to, you know, a little bit of the rock and roll? Jail. I would become a problem.
All right. You guys can go check out the rest of this if you like. Smallest and Angriest Country in the World by Wendigoon, but this is his other channel, Wendigang. So. All right. Nanjing Massacre. The Rape of Nanking. Nanjing. All right. Blah, blah, blah. Nanjing Massacre, or the Rape of Nanjing, formerly romanticized as Nanking, was the mass rape and murder between December 1937 and March 1938 of Chinese civilians, non-combatants, and prisoners of war by the Imperial Japanese Army in Nanjing, the capital of the Republic of China. It took place immediately after the Battle of Nanjing and the retreat of the National Revolutionary Army during the Second Sino-Japanese War. After the outbreak of the war in early 1937, the Japanese had pushed quickly through China after capturing Shanghai. See, somehow I would have thought Shanghai was the capital. I think it is now, right? I'm just wondering where the term Shanghai originated. Like, I'm assuming it's from the city, but I'm not sure, like, if they had the practice of Shanghaiing sailors there or not. And I'm not going to stop using that phrase, by the way. Shanghaied. It has a nice ring to it. He got shanghaied. In November, pushed quickly through China after capturing Shanghai in November. As the Japanese marched on Nanjing, they committed violent atrocities in a terror campaign, including killing contests and massacres of entire villages. By early December, the Japanese Central Army Central Area Army under the command of General Iwamatsu, I don't know, reached the outskirts of the city. The Japanese had also planned to use mustard gas and incendiary bombs to annihilate the capital and its population should the fighting have grown too intense. Prince Yasuhiko Asaka was installed as temporary commander in the campaign and issued an order to kill all captives before the city's capture. That's not great. Matsu and Asaka took no action to stop the massacre after it began. Wait a second. The Japanese Central China Area Army under the command of General Iwamatsu reached the outskirts of the city. So is this a Chinese guy? Prince Yasuhiko, founder of the collateral branch of the Japanese imperial family. Japanese China in the Second World War. He was the son-in-law of Emperor Meiji, an uncle by marriage to Emperor something, I assume. Alright. Temporary commander, and he issued an order to kill all captives before the city's capture. So he has named guide of the city, and he says, kill all captives. Wouldn't it be better to say, take no prisoners? I don't know. The massacre began on December 13th after the Japanese troops entered the city after days of intense fighting and continued to rampage through it unchecked. Japanese soldiers murdered civilians, including children, women, and the elderly. The Japanese units also summarily executed thousands of captured Chinese soldiers in violation of the laws of war, as well as male civilians falsely accused of being soldiers. They raped women and girls, their ages ranging from infants to the elderly, and destroyed 1/3 of the city with arson. Rape victims were often murdered afterwards. In addition to civilians, Japanese units indiscriminately murdered tens of thousands of Chinese POWs. See, I don't know if some of you guys knew this. The Japanese, there's a reason they got along with Hitler, okay? I think they have some race ideologies of their own sometimes. I'd mentioned one time I think they had some sort of polygenetic type of legend. I'm not for sure if that's actually true, but I think they do have ideas of divine providence, perhaps, with regards to themselves. There was a whole thing where there was like the storms of heaven or something. They thought that Japan was protected or something, because I think it was with regards to the Mongols. There were storms that literally destroyed their fleet or something like that. You have to look that up. Don't take my word for it. But again, I think they have some delusions of grandeur to some extent. Many scholars support the validity of the International Military Tribunal for the Far East, which estimated that more than 200,000 people were killed, while newer estimates adhere to the death toll between 100,000 and 200,000. Other estimates of death toll vary from the low 40,000, confined to just the city itself, to a higher of over 340,000, encompassing the entire Shanghai to Nanjing region. And estimates of rapes range from 4,000 to over 80,000, with estimates around 20,000 being the most common. Other crimes include torture, looting, and arson. The massacre is considered one of the worst wartime atrocities in history. Traditional historiography dates back to the massacre unfolding over a period of 6 weeks, beginning on December 13th, 1937, following the city's capture, and as being spatially confined within Nanjing and its immediate vicinity. However, the Nanjing massacre was far from an isolated case and fit into a pattern of Japanese... Yeah, it doesn't make sense that they would just like go to this one city and then become insane. And fit into a pattern of Japanese atrocities along the lower Yangtze River, with Japanese forces routinely committing massacres since the Battle of Shanghai. Furthermore, Japanese atrocities in the Nanjing area did not end in January 1937, but instead persisted in the region until late March 1938. An international committee of Westerners, including Nazi German citizens John Raub, created the King safety zone in an attempt to protect citizens. So the Nazis, the good guys, what the... Harry, the safety zone was mostly a success. This was credited with saving at least 200,000 lives. After the war, Matsu and several other commanders at the Nanjing were found guilty of war crimes and executed. That's something, I suppose. Some other Japanese military leaders who were in charge at the time of the Nanjing massacre were not tried, only because by the time of the tribunals they had either already been killed or committed ritual suicide. Yes, I know. As a Christian, you want to think everyone can be saved, but like, given some of the stuff, it's kind of one of those situations where I'm not disinclined to let the government do their job, I guess. So shalt thou put evil away from among you. I don't know. Massacres. Asaka was granted immunity as a member of the Imperial... What the... I feel like exceptions should be maybe made in situations like that. I don't know. The massacre remains a contentious topic in Sino-Japanese relations. I think Sino would be the mainland oriental area. As Japanese... Yeah, there was a whole thing recently in England where they would say that some of the rape gangs that were going on were Asian gentlemen. And it feels like I like the term Orient because it kind of did, like, it. Actually, I'd seen that in a Jordan Peterson thingy recently where he was saying, like, it kind of helps distinguish, okay, so Asian versus East Asian or West Asians, or, like, you know, Middle Easterners or stuff like that. It's worth, I think, making a distinction there. Technically, Russians could also be considered Asians. I don't think I would want, like, the hologram. Yeah, I don't know. Feels like it, yeah. Worth making a distinction there. As Japanese nationalists and historical revisionists, including top government officials, have either denied or minimized the massacre. Yeah. There's a thing. Anyways, you guys can go check out the rest of it if you like. Moving on, I think we're going to try and do some Voidling Bound. I know we've been doing Strange Brigade, but I'm getting kind of bored, so maybe I'll finish it one of these days. I think I got further than I did the last time, so. Alright. Bye bye loneliness, bye bye sweet caress. I think I'm gonna die. It's Boogie. Wait a second. I'm gonna check, because I had one where I was, I think, a bit further ahead. So we are somewhat there, yeah. Yeah. Corruption cleaning. Mutagens found 3 of 4. Golden eggs found 1 of 2. Completed in less than 3 minutes. Best was 15 minutes, so that's not exactly cleaning the Eyrie. Level 10. Drawing fire. Survive the storm. Did I want this guy? Freezing shards, highly effectiveness on the pen. This one. I'm gonna go check the mission I'm going on here. So they'll have like what type of thing you want on it. Alright, weak to fire and poison, so I think I'm gonna get a different voidling. Alright, there we go. Let's try with this one. do one of the... Yeah, well, that's nice. With the damage bonus, damage. Why not? Let's try this actual Literally arc. All right. Yeah, for whatever reason, I think I was thinking Nimrod. No, it's Nimioid. Oh, that's that adorable little monstrous amphibioid. That's alright. Pretty good on agility. No. Strength. Agility. What's the time in the way of that? Recuperation. Recuperation. Alright. You know, I think I might have left a couple of my voidlings in the exercise room, possibly. Maybe not. Alright. Let's see if we can train any of these guys. Do this guy. No, why not? I didn't release that guy, did I? That would be cool. Double check, because maybe I did accidentally. No, he's still here. He's still here. We're good. Alright. Now, let's see what kind of missions we have. Alright. In the Irie. I kind of want to do this one a little bit better. See, I'm thinking. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, weakness, fire, poison. Mutagens, golden eggs. I don't think I'm going to go for the complete in less than 3 minutes, though. Alright. Go on. What's it going to do? Oh. Sound. Could do a little less. Deck power, reload duration, cooldown reduction, ultimate healing multiplier. Oh, goodness gracious. go for the speed one if we can. 3 minutes. That's not. I think I maybe need it. You know what? I might just do stuff normally. I feel like I'm like the faster boiling fun to do it in 3 minutes. I'm remembering how this thing went. Go away. I wonder if they made the health replenishes more bountiful, so to speak. 'Cause I don't remember there being that many before. Down here. Big step out. Alright, and I missed one here, I take it. Golden Egg is not necessarily a good void lane. It's just something that's been pre-integrated. Sure. I really like the soundtrack of this thing. The booties. Haunting. thought, like, $1 billion idea. I thought it would be awesome if, at some point or another, they decided to make a kind of a wacky Western open worlder off of the Three Amigos. You know, that movie with Chevy Chase, Steve, what's his face? The other dude. Yeah, the Three Amigos. I feel like that could make like a great type of. Yeah, maybe it's just in my head, but I feel like some movies would make a great adaptation as far as like the vibe of the world. If you did it right, if it's done correctly, I feel like it could be pretty cool. Alright, at least I got all that done. Another star. And 2 more eggs. Nice. Yes, I'm sure. Alright, yes, send to inventory. Well, maybe some of the golden ones are already leveled up, or like pre-leveled up or something too. Maybe that's part of the glitch. Let's look at this. This only has one blue thing, but it's... Let me see if I can stick this thing in. This is like what? I think the yellow stuff is the stuff that you do yourself. The blue stuff is the stuff that comes pre-packed with it, right? This one doesn't have any. So this one has like a whole bunch of strength that's just extra, I think, tacked on top. And then I've upgraded it, and that's the yellow stuff. So this looks like it's like somehow upgraded already. You really should get it so it stays on the one you leave it on. I'm not going to do the mission, okay? But I'm going to look at this. Yeah, see, it's like it's like they've already upgraded it a little bit. I want to go to the workout stuff and see what its actual level is. Alright, good on you. I guess you can train it, but it does look like it's leveled up, so maybe there is something to the notion. I don't know. Think you can do anything there? Not yet, anyways. Can't do anything there. Wrangler level 10 required. I might see if we can upgrade a couple of these ones. Alright, so... there. Strength, vitality. At least that one. I'll release that one. Alright. Essence. Agility, essence. So I feel like I can do good speed run. Let's see if we can upgrade this thing. Alright, what do we want this one on? Legion sponsor. They're both Legion. Damn. Yeah, why not? Explosive projectile and slow stream of fire rate. Burn targets on hit. Shoot a quick projectile that explodes onto multiple members. Once burnt here, enemies on hit. I'm gonna try this one. Run at ludicrous speeds while performing primary attack. Okay, that's useful for a speedrun thing. Apply burn and slow to nearby enemies. I think I'm gonna go with this one. Nice, nice, nice. Looks kind of gay, but nice. I think that's... I'm assuming it's fully evolved. Yeah, I think that's as far as you can go. Yeah, we're good. Alright. I should see if there's anything more to upgrade in this. one's done pretty much. Claw and pack, so the only thing that's done is the melee, which I don't really use that much. Alright, I think that's about all for today. Thank you guys for watching, and you have a lovely weekend.